Father John Misty, for once, drops the pretension and outrospective observations on the wider world, which was done a lot better in 2017 by Randy Newman, but never mind that. Right now, he's giving a window into his personal life, but a smudgy window with the blinds half down because he doesn't seem to want to reveal too much. Regardless, there is a continuous sense of feeling unhappy and worried. Worried is the important word here, as Joshua Tillman expresses nervousness about mortality, his wife, especially when he's singing Please Don't Die, as if to be worried heavily about how he'd cope without her to rely on in times of despondent feeling, and his own mental health. This sort of openness reveals a narrator with whom we are to sympathize with, despite him having been a narrator that was rather difficult to sympathize with on his past 3 records. The thing is that Pure Comedy, I Love You Honey Bear, and the Alti crowd's favorite didn't really have much introspection as much as it did snarky commentary. So shown by Tillman's face on this cover, this is essentially the Tillman album. I don't really need to say too much about the confessions here, as they are admirably honest and surprisingly dire. I did feel as if Tillman wanted to put all his personal anxieties and fears onto record, and although he doesn't necessarily dig into them in the detail he does with his other observations on Pure Comedy, for example, there seems to be an implied reason for that on this record, and it's how uncomfortable it would be for him if you were really knowing every detail of it. In a way, he patches the one flaw that listeners may find with the record's theming and framing. Sneaky bastard. Even in times where lyrics are a little self-centered, he seems fully aware of that and is trying to move away from such. But moreover, as a musical endeavor, this actually kind of sounds pretty pleasant. As a piano rock and folk record, it's nothing all too new. The string and brass arrangements are gorgeous to hear, and at times the thundering, jazzy piano parts are reminiscent of a Fiona Apple record, and those who know will know that's probably a key way to impress me.
I had pretzels in my hand.
Tempo-wise, it all stays slow, or at least steady, nothing too frisky, and I guess that only makes sense. Tillman doesn't seem like the person that would get manic unless he's writing a song about Taylor Swift, and often when Tillman pauses or stops a song and leaves you with silence, haunted by the last notes ringing on the piano, it helps add to a rather poignant atmosphere overall. Whether this poignancy comes from the mood that he creates from such personal confessions, or the fact that you're happening to enjoy a Father John Misty record, it's poignant nonetheless. It seems that in terms of songwriting, Tillman isn't too shabby. While many songs on Pure Comedy were the equivalent of dragging Elton John's cutting room floor recordings over the course of 11 minutes along an empty suburb, God's Favorite Customer is often doing that for just 4 to 5 minutes instead. The melodies are prone to making my heart swoon, and Tillman occasionally raising his voice to a falsetto not only drives the sadness of the song home, it also tucks it into a bed for a nice rest and gives it a complimentary bedside glass of water. At the end of the day, we're people, and there's nothing much anyone can do about that. Seems like a rather fantastic way to end off the album theme-wise too. It seems as though after such hesitant dissecting of what stresses Tillman out, he tries to gather the resulting turmoil and comfort it again. All that I've just said seems like praise, and should be a signal to the fact that I love this album, and it is a big highlight for the year. But if you see the remaining runtime for this video, you may be alarmed to realize that I have more to say on this album that isn't so positive. For every high-stake expression of emotion and specifically worry, Josh Tillman sounds contrastingly tired when singing it all. Understanding this is his usual vocal delivery, you'd still wonder if he could have at least given it with a little more conviction so I can feel it too. When reading the lyrics, I get it. When hearing the melodies and instrumentals, I get it. But there is something I don't get when hearing Tillman sing that makes me feel not only am I trying to find a gateway of interest into the song, so is he. Not that I'm saying he doesn't genuinely care about what he's singing, he wouldn't have written, recorded and released these songs otherwise, but when it comes to gelling on record itself, the album just seems to plod along. And weirdly, the sudden upbeat compressed bit of piano rock Date Night is the clumsiest attempt at breaking up the crawl-paced flow of this record, while everything around it, while sounding nice, in fact nothing on the rest of the album sounds outright bad or anything, still seems to bleed into one another. I can't ever think back to how a song sounds melodically. It certainly sounds good in the moment, but in context with the rest of the album, it's actually seriously forgettable that I may as well not have even bothered. Even weirder though, the most confusing part of this whole ordeal, and this is going to clash with potentially everything that I've said before, but without Tillman's snark most of the time, I almost feel as if there's nearly nothing for me to remember now. This is such a strange thing for me to point out, having complimented the fact that he has dropped the snark for this album and he has become more confessional and serious, but in doing this, he's shed away what made me at least a little bit intrigued about the nihilistic and low-key dickhead character of Father John Misty. And combined with songs that generally I can't find memorable in atmosphere and distinguishing features from one another, God's Favorite Customer has its potential 7 out of 10 slipped down to a mere 6. Oops.